thank you all for coming again. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris Wallen, Development Director for California Solar Electric. Quick PSA for California Solar Electric. We've been around for 20 years, one of the longest operating solar companies in the state of California. We're very proud of that, servicing Santa Barbara, Santa Paula, Ventura County, all the way up to Goleta, down to Thousand Oaks. Very proud about our reputation. And in fact, our owner who started it is in the house tonight. Cam, can I get a shout out? Where's the hand? There he is. Cam Campbell right there. One of the many pillars of Ojai. We have a few pillars here tonight, and that's a good mark for Green Drinks. So I think we're on our 6th or 7th series already, so it's always important. Those that you don't know the format, we'll be talking for about 25 minutes, and Jack and the Topa gang make sure they hold us accountable for those 25 minutes because commerce must continue on, right? The bar will be back open after 25 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll have a brief Q&A, and then if folks have further questions, we're calling this now the Speaker Lounge up here. You're encouraged to come on up and hang with Paul and further the questions and ideas. And the intent of Green Drinks is really to identify and empower our community. And when I say identifies, there's a lot of powerful people in the room tonight actively involved in the environment or sustainability in one way or another. And a lot of this is just to connect dots and understand what people are doing. I can't tell you how many different coalitions there are out there, and sometimes I worry about the redundancy that might be happening out there. So if there is one byproduct of Green Drinks, I hope that it is to reduce redundancy and that we can better align ourselves with actually traction of what does it all roll up to? Is it the general plan? Is it getting ordinance created? Is it getting a stronger coalition? Is it aligning ourselves with a defense fund? Is it monetary? What are those issues that are holding us back? And as you know, the opportunity here is we want to model Ojai and Ventura County as the Copenhagen of California. There's no reason why we can't be a model sustainable community for California and for the world. And when we talk, yeah, amen. When we talk about Ecotopia, or I guess there's a hot springs name, Ecotopia, so we got to say Ecotopa. That's really the vision. And why can't we be the vision? We're small, we're agile, we're the Netherlands of Europe, and they're always the most progressive out there. So let's challenge ourselves to think visually, coordinate, and put pressure on the policy people that need pressure and need to align. And if we need to secede in areas and go it alone, then let's talk about that. And I think that's an important thing too. Ojai Valley, we deserve better, and we can quickly be a model for what is a blueprint for other communities out there. So that's the intent of Green Drinks, and there's other great groups out there that I want to give shout outs to, but you know, I will digress on that. So let me keep moving here. I do have a brief couple of housekeeping notes. We're growing up. We actually have a YouTube channel that's starting for Ray Powers. Let's all give it up for Ray Powers. He's been out here, another pillar of the community. I'll just keep taking turns introducing pillars of the communities here. He also just had a book launch. Was it last week or a couple weeks ago? Anyway, check out his Facebook. He's got a brand new book that he's really excited about, and I'm excited about. Happy for him. And he's got a lot of things going, but anyway, he's been graciously here filming, and he's now creating a YouTube channel for Green Drinks so we can see past archives of Sea Frog that talked about the fracking that's going on and what's happening with Sea Frog with Marie Lakin, not Melanie Larkin, but Marie Lakin. There's another Ojai tongue twister there. And then, of course, we had the Clean Coalition talking about microgrids. And actually on that, on the note of resiliency, I think another important chapter for Green Drinks is to sort of go back and update you on what past topics we've had, because it's not just a one and done with topics. We want to sort of connect the dots and give you updates. So I don't know if you guys watch or get the LA Times. I know we're sort of in a bubble up here, but the LA Times had a big article on the front page of LA Times about the public safety power shutoffs. a balancing act when fire threat looms, and it's all about what to do for the IOUs. And are the IOUs, the investor-owned utilities, are they adequately allowing the critical facilities and the old folks, the rest facilities, the respirators, all those, are they adequately reaching out to them and giving them enough advance warning to be prepared? And what are they doing to arm everybody with generators? And they're not doing quite enough. So it's interesting to see it kind of ratchet up the priority list. And I would say that they just announced in this, and I talked to Chris Danch is also here at the Ojai Fire Safe Council. He spoke a couple months ago. Can I see a hand, Chris? Are you still here? Oh, you're way over there. Sorry. Turning my back to you. Anyway, we talked already. He's aware. The state just talked about a $75 million fund that they're making available for shut-off preparedness. And that's becoming a new thing, obviously, is what to do. And I tell you, in about a month time or 2 months, when the first shutoffs happen, it's going to be a new world. It's going to be, we're going to evaluate time before the shutoffs and after the shutoffs, and everyone's going to be wondering where their generator is, rushing to Home Depot or calling us. So it's just another item for us to be a leader and understand what's really at stake, and let's set the example there. Anyway, so we're aware of that. We're going to be going after that, writing grants through the Ojai Fire Safe Council. Always a good forum. So if you don't know about them, check them out. They're doing some great things for us. Also, let's see here. Notes are not, oh, there they are. Let's see, 75 million, got that. Okay, also the Ojai City Council. I don't know if you have heard the news lately, but we joined 850 cities globally announcing and declaring a climate emergency, which is a big deal. And what that does, is that it really puts in focus a rapid mobilization of projects that we can do, low-hanging fruit. What are things? It gets the city involved. I think it really puts the focus on resiliency, and that's becoming a new word. And I think that's also something that we want to connect the dots on all of these green drinks is how can we be more resilient? And it's one of my favorite lines. A resilient community will be worth more in the future than a non-resilient community. And what's great about that is that it's bipartisan, don't care where your politics are. We all need to be on the same page about resiliency. And actually put more bluntly, a resilient community will survive longer than a non-resilient community. So, we hate to go down that path, but that's what it comes down to. And we sit obviously in a spot where we need to be thinking about that. So, all right. That is it. Next month, we do not have a topic yet, but I'm always looking for topics. So if you have interesting ideas, please do reach out to me. I also am growing my email list. So if I don't have your email, or if you got invited here or found out about it not through me, please do reach out to me afterwards and let me grow that list, and we'll continue to have on. Also, lastly, if you're not here for green drinks, I ask you're welcome to go outside or come in. It'll be talking for about 20-25 minutes, and just keep it quiet while our speaker talks, quiet in the back. And I think we're all sort of engaged here, so it's a good sign. All right, with that, I would like to introduce Paul to come out, and he'll be talking about the latest on the Matilija Dam. And as always, I will be asking a trivia question at the end that I'll be giving away a $25 gift card for TOPA. So please pay attention. There'll be a trivia question. It won't be too hard. Won't be too easy though. So pay attention to the details is all I would ask. And without further ado, Paul Jenkin, everybody. Thank you very much.
We're good. Thank you. All right. I know many of you in the room, if you haven't met me before, Paul Jenkin. I'm the Ventura campaign coordinator for the Surfrider Foundation. And I've been working on issues in the Ventura River watershed for over 20 years now. I'm going to talk to you about this long-term project that I've been involved in now since about 1995. Who does not know where Matilija Dam is? All right, this is Ojai. Everybody knows about this thing. Matilija Dam was built in 1948, and it was the first water supply project on the Ventura River. And by 1965, it became apparent that the concrete was deficient. It was at risk of collapsing. And so you can see the way that the dam is stair-stepped down. They removed 35 feet off the top of the dam. So what used to be a 200-foot high dam is 165 or something like that these days. This is what it looks like when it rains. In 2000, we formed the Matilija Coalition to really kind of consolidate all the nonprofit organizations and people who are interested in trying to get this dam out of there. And in the meantime, things have been heating up. And I'm just posting this because the real topic of this is how the dam removal will help with community resilience. And you can see that down in the lower left, right there. We're one of the red spots, and I think we're already starting to see the impacts. 1948, this is what the dam looked like. And we're not alone. There's thousands of dams across the United States. That's cut off at the top there. This is a New York Times article from February 2017. America's aging dams are in need of repair. And so the average lifespan of a dam around the world is about 50 years. How old is Matilija Dam now? It's more than 50. So here's some historic images from 1952, before the dam was notched, and then more recently. And here's kind of a diagram of the way that that dam was altered to prevent it from collapsing. Remember, we had the San Francisco Dam on the Santa Clara River collapse just 20 years before that and took out the whole river, and multiple lives were lost, cows were in the ocean, and it was a big mess. This is what Matilija Reservoir looked like when it was first constructed. Some of you may have sailed a boat on Matilija Reservoir back in the 60s. It had a storage capacity of about 7,000 acre-feet. The reservoir was about a mile long, went way up the canyon. Anybody know how much water Lake Casitas holds? 230,000. So divide that out. This is a drop in the bucket. It never stored a lot of water, but it was intended to divert water through a giant pipe called the Matilija Conduit right over here to the San Antonio Creek spreading grounds. And that was the intent of the dam, was to try and help recharge the aquifers. Think about that. This was in the 40s. We were already over pumping our aquifer in the Ojai Valley. Today, actually this is 2003, and you can see that there's not much left back there. And then, as you all know, we had the big fire, and the whole watershed burned, and that's what the river looked like. You can see that after the first rains, a ton of muck and sediment and debris came down the river, and this is what it looked like spilling over the dam. Unbelievable filth coming down, a lot of ash. And Perry at the Ojai Valley News actually picked up on this. Fast forward now to this year, and this year we got a couple of nice rain events, as you know. And I was kind of expecting this to happen. We haven't seen a major advance in the delta, in the reservoir, in decades. And after the fire, boom, this influx came into the reservoir. And then I went up there. There's that new delta come in, and you can see, I was just talking to somebody here a minute ago, that used to be kind of 6 to 8 feet deep, and it's maybe a couple feet deep, waist high. So what that means is that the sediment that's coming down the river ultimately will be flowing over the dam. At that point, everything downstream will change, because for the last 70 years, the dam has prevented the sand, gravel, and cobble from coming down the river, but passing all the fine sediments. We still get all that brown water coming over the top, but we don't get the sand, gravel, and cobble, which is what really builds a river. So in 2004, we completed a feasibility study with the Army Corps of Engineers. You guys know those guys? Sore spot? They got a great reputation, don't they? We thought we had a project, but it was way too complicated, and I'm not going to go into the details of it, but it was also extremely expensive and highly unlikely that it was ever going to happen for a whole variety of reasons. But the main point of that study was that it identified downstream all these infrastructure pieces that were deficient. And these are currently deficient. These are things that are currently deficient under the current regime, and the county is incredibly risk adverse in terms of if they take the dam out, all of that stuff is going to show its color. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that stuff in a minute, but years went by. This was a cartoon that was published in the Ventura County Reporter. Everybody agrees this dam should go. Why in the heck hasn't it happened yet? And oh yeah, that's a good one. Hey man, silt happens. Because silt happens in the Ventura River. You guys might remember the Oroville Dam. This is a major giant dam up in Central California that we almost lost it a couple years ago, but it really highlighted the issue that this is a wake-up call. The drought reminds us we need to use water more wisely. Oroville reminds us that we need to upgrade our infrastructure and our management to move water more wisely. So this is really a kind of a wake-up call across the board with climate change and bigger floods and bigger droughts. We need to think more carefully about how we deal with our water. In the meantime, we're stuck with aging infrastructure like Matilija Dam that's really doing no good at all, and in fact creating a risk to the community. And the dam is overseen by the Division of Dam Safety, and you can see down here it is an extremely high-risk dam in poor condition and with no reservoir restrictions currently. After years of debate and long meetings with lots of people in the room, we came to the conclusion that we could actually do this a lot cheaper and easier and quicker. A dynamite idea. This is based on the Condit Dam removal. Has anybody here seen the film Damnation? Damnation. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely the thing to watch to understand dam removal. And in this case, they actually dynamited a hole in the base of this dam, and the reservoir drained within a few hours, and all the silt flushed through, created a canyon upstream. They took the dam out, and the next year, people were river rafting and kayaking down through this reach of the river. And the fish came back. This is technically feasible. You can do it much quicker, and it's much, much cheaper. So with that, we attracted some private funding, and we got the Resources Legacy Fund, who kind of stewards money from Hewlett Foundation. You guys have heard of Hewlett-Packard. And so they initially pledged $175 to support the project, and they have been directly involved since then for the last few years. We sat down as a group, we created a funding committee, and we collectively wrote a grant for the county to do the studies necessary to advance this new project. It's a $3 million project that is still underway today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that downstream issues. Anybody know where this is? Here's a clue. Here's a clue. This is Ojai. So these guys have a suspension bridge to hike across the river every time it rains, because the county's got to go out there and clean the mess up and fix it so that people can get home pretty much every time it rains. So this is the Camino Cielo Bridge. That is the first component of the project. Obviously there's a problem there, and the county doesn't want to be liable, so they will build a new bridge. Next downstream is the Robles diversion. So I actually got a drone out there and took this aerial photo. You can see, where's the little laser? All of this back here is sediment that came down after the fire, and you probably saw in the news, it caused a lot of problems there. And so we kind of knew this already. It's an ongoing problem with the diversion. It's not really set up to handle much sediment. As I said, soon we're going to have a lot more sediment coming over the top of the dam. We got to deal with this after fires. We got to deal with this in the future, and we got to deal with it with dam removal. So that's always been a consideration in the project. And the Corps had proposed this. There's these big gates that the Casitas Water District uses to control the river, to divert it, and the Corps proposed a few more gates in order to allow higher flows through, to flush the sediment through during high flows. I'm not sure where that's going to end up, but that's a consideration in the project. This is directly downstream of Robles. You can see the canal going off here. Anybody live right here? This is right down. This is the Oso. There we go. This is the Oso trailhead right here. Meyer and Oso roads right here, and this is what the floodplain looks like. Actually, currently, 100-year flood. That's what the county predicts would happen there. So. With that, they're actually proposing some sort of protection here that would do something like that to protect that community. But that's a big concern in the project. I'm going to keep going here. Anybody know where this one is? This is down in Oakview. This is what's known as the Live Oak Levee. This is the Santa Ana Bridge. And this is what it looks like during flood flows. And you can see the way that this levee right here, it's not actually a real levee. It's kind of like after the '69 floods, they just went and piled up a bunch of rocks. And then every time it started falling apart, they concreted it more and threw some more rocks up. And it's never actually a really engineered structure. If the county was here, I don't know. Any engineers here? I don't think it is. But that first picture that I showed you, it almost failed in 2005. Yeah, it almost failed. So the next piece of the puzzle, and this is the real issue, is that the bridge constricts the river. And you can see the way that the floodplain has been constricted here by that development and that levee. So it funnels all the water down through here, and the river's too narrow right there. So this bridge needs to be widened and raised higher in order to pass the flows, and the levee needs to be replaced. These are all pretty big ticket items. There's the bridge. That's kind of what the bridge alignment would look like. And as I said, we created a committee, and we got a bunch of sort of ad hoc volunteers. We actually hired a consultant to help with this. And just a couple months ago, we successfully raised a $13.5 million grant from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So this will be the first major piece of the puzzle, the first piece of the project, and we're currently working on additional funding for the levees and the other pieces. But this is a big sign right here. The state funded a $3 million project to get the studies rolling, and then they followed up with this $13 million project to do the first piece of it. The state is 100% in on this project because they know how important it is, not just to the steelhead, but to the resilience of our community. Then, because we've always talked about how much sand would get to the beach and how it would help with beach erosion, that's why I got involved with Surfrider. It was all about beach erosion. We wrote another grant to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and that's about a $300,000 project that's just about to be wrapping up right now. And I'll post information on my blog when all this stuff comes available. But the idea here is looking at how the river changes, how the estuary and where that sediment goes down the coast. This was one of the big surprises in one of the biggest, most successful dam removal projects in history, which was on the Elwha River up in Washington State. There, they were all focusing on the historic salmon runs, and it was a surprise to many of them the changes at the mouth of the river. And this ecosystem right here rebounded in ways that the scientists never predicted. They also got their fish back. So that was a good one. And of course, this is our Ventura River Delta here. You can really see the delta when it's an aerial photo like this, and you understand that the Ventura River over tens of thousands of years has created where we surf, right? This is C Street, Surfers Point, and that's, like I said, that's what was my initial interest in this. So I have this poster on the wall, it's online, and it kind of shows you the various components of the project. But the idea that this is a watershed-wide project, you can't just take the dam out, you gotta like look downstream and do a whole bunch of other stuff, makes it a pretty big endeavor. Between 1999 and 2016, you can see that over $27 million was spent. Not only studying, a lot of the Arundo removal program in the watershed was funded through the Matilija project and related, and there was a lot of other pieces to it. In fact, the trailhead on Baldwin Road, that old Baldwin Road, that was part of the Matilija Dam project. So little pieces of it have been happening. We wanted to take a look and see what it cost, and you're looking at, you know, over $100 million project. The reason that we had to back away from the core was it quickly escalated well over 200 million. It was getting to be over 100 million just to put in a dredge and slurry it downstream and recycle the water and pump it back up there and all this crazy stuff, and nobody wanted that sediment on the river preserve anyway. So people think, oh, $100 million, damn, that's a lot of money. Well, you know how much that bridge over the Santa Clara River for 101 cost? To widen it, they got 2 lanes on the 101 going into Oxnard there. That was over $100 million. You know how much they've spent widening the freeway between Ventura and Santa Barbara? $1 billion. It was half $500 million in each county to widen the freeway. So there's a lot of money out there for infrastructure. There's just not a lot of money out there for deficient infrastructure, you know. Okay, so like I said, we've been working really hard raising money for this. We got over almost $500,000 through the Hewlett Foundation program, $3 million of design, $300,000 for the coastal, and over $13 million for the Santa Ana Bridge. So to date, we've raised over $17 million for the project. And the Wildlife Conservation Board and the Coastal Conservancy have also pledged to put in another over $6 million. So although you haven't been hearing much and there hasn't been much press, the project is moving forward. And I'm working on it pretty much on a daily basis and meeting with the engineers and talking to people and trying to work things out. This obviously is what it says today. I think this picture was taken in about 2001. But this is the image that I had photoshopped so you could see what it might look like in the future. And of course, when I used to do this talk, it was all about all the nice things that we could get if we took the dam out. You know, we could get sand on the beach, and we could get steelhead back up into the Matilija Canyon, and everybody would be happily ever after. Nobody cares about steelhead, do they? Oh, okay. The main thing is there's a lot of issues in this watershed that the Matilija Dam project can hopefully expedite and get taken care of. This is another piece of it. Here's the dam. This was a very early conceptual trail project, but the main point for me is that we want to turn Matilija Canyon back over to the public. That was a national forest. That was public land. People used to go up there and fish and swim and sit in the hot springs and all that. So putting in some trails up there and some public access is going to be a big piece of the project when it finally comes to fruition. And to that end, we've been working on this Ventura River Parkway concept for about 10 years ago. We kind of put this map together. You might have seen the map. But this idea that this river corridor is a parkway and it should be there for us to enjoy. And the more you get people out of the river bottom or acquire land so that people aren't building in the river bottom, the less you have to come back in the future. Like I said, this was the first bumper sticker that we printed, I think in 1995. And a little Ventura chapter of Surfrider said, "Oh, we can do this. Give a damn, free the sand, grow the beach." And it was all about growing the beach. Then, as you know, somebody came and painted those scissors up there. So a couple of years ago, I was trying to figure out, every good grassroots campaign comes with a bumper sticker, right? Keep Tahoe blue. You've all seen that one. There's a lot of them out there. So when I revamped the bumper sticker, this is what the stickers look like today. And you've seen them around. Yeah. I've got a stack of them here somewhere. Somebody stole them. There they are. So there's stickers for all. Take one, display it proudly. I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you. The question is, what's the next thing we have to do? Well, our team is working on, as I said, trying to get the funding for the next components. I think that Oakview levee is probably the next thing. There's more design that needs to be done. So it's a matter of getting the funding for the engineers to do the final design. And we're still working through getting the results from our sediment studies before we can do that. So it's kind of a step by step. But we kind of like thinking that if we can start knocking off the infrastructure from the bottom up, we're trying to get together with Casitas and figure out how to manage the diversion better in the future. We all need that water supply, obviously. And so, the main thing is that, like I said, there hasn't been a lot of press recently. We're working hard, but, the community support that we have for this project is really important. And it's really important that we have the discussions that need to happen so that we can make it.
So is notching it the best way to do it all the time and let the rain take the sediment down a little bit?
This is the perennial question. He says, is notching the dam the best way to remove it? And I believe so. I think that if we would have started notching 25 years ago, when I started looking at this, nobody would have ever noticed any difference anywhere downstream. And we could have done 10 feet a year or something, and we'd be done. That's not what's happening. The plan right now is to actually bore those holes in the bottom. We would wait for a storm just like we had this year. We had perfect rainfall this year. We had about 7,000, 10,000 cubic feet per second flows in Matilija Canyon. And if we blew those holes, 2 12-foot diameter holes in the base of the dam, it would flush like a bathtub, and it would carve that channel upstream and get the river reestablished, and then you could take the dam out. So the first part was, why don't you just use a drill, and then when you pulled the drill back out, then the water would come. It'd be a dangerous place to be. But to be clear, what they did on Condit and the concept here was actually to drill that hole so that it was all the way through, less than 6 feet thick. The bottom of the dam is about 35 feet thick. So you would drill it all the way through so there was just a little plug of concrete left, and then that could be dynamited. Or in the case, drilling all the way through and putting a gate on there that you could open and close. So that was that. The other question was kind of about water supply and can't we reuse the silt for agriculture or for farming? And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it. The 2 million yards that is now probably 3 million yards of silt would have filled the river bottom at the Riverview trailhead. It was 95 acres, 30 feet high. So it would have been all the way from the homes all the way down past that old vineyard. Down below that, it was a huge area. To just give you an idea of the kind of volumes that we're talking about. At the same time, during a high flow event, that much goes by the river every couple of hours, So the idea is to really use the capacity of the river to take advantage of it. And then as far as water supply goes, you have to understand that reservoirs evaporate. So Matilija Reservoir is evaporating. all of the trees, and it used to be all the arundo and everything upstream, that's all evaporating. That whole area will be turned into more of a canyon with a creek in the bottom. It'll evaporate a lot less. We'll have more water coming down the river once the dam is out. We'll also have better water quality because that stagnant water behind there is heating up in the sun, and then that hot water grows algae and all that, and then that's released downstream, and that's what's impacting the river downstream. So there's a lot of, kind of subtle benefits to removing the dam that, having seen the way that the river has rebounded after the fires, is kind of miraculous. I wonder what's going to happen when the dam comes out. I mean, I think we might be surprised. The question is, how will the dam removal affect the harbors? Many of you probably know that the harbors have to bypass the sand every year. They got to dredge past the sands going down the coast. All those harbors are just like a dam on the beach. And so if more sediment comes down, how is that going to affect the dredging cycles? I will know more about the answer to that tomorrow because the coastal studies team is having a meeting and doing a presentation on their results. But the initial input that I heard was that it won't be much. It won't be catastrophic. And keep in mind that the way it works is you have a really big flood and a ton of stuff comes out, and that slowly works its way down the coast. And then you have years of drought before the next year. And so the initial studies that we had expected that we would get about 30% more during one of those flood events over kind of a 50-year lifespan. So it's probably in that ballpark. So it might take a bit more dredging, but we will have wider beaches. You guys might have seen Pierpont during that 2015 storm. The waves went right over the beach and went right in there. Sea level rise is going to play havoc with our coast. The question is the state Water Resources Control Board that regulates discharges into waters in California. Yeah, the initial discussions that we've had with them is that they understand the long-term benefits, and this goes across the board for all the agencies, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and NOAA Fisheries and Army Corps all understand that this will be restorative in the long term. And honestly, I don't think, actually, the initial studies show that we would have an elevated level of turbidity during the initial blast for 24 to 48 hours. And you guys might have seen the river this year, 2 years after the fire, it was still turbid for 2 months. So I think of it in terms of we've got a mile-long reach of river that's going to be affected as opposed to some 60-odd miles that were affected by the fire upstream of there. So, but yes, the permits and the regulations are all a major consideration in anything of this scale.
Beaver. Bring it back to beaver.
Oh, the beaver revolution, absolutely. No, this is the thing, is that what we have seen in general, this goes for electricity, this goes for water, this goes for pretty much everything that humans have done, is that big, giant, centralized infrastructure is highly vulnerable to catastrophic type events like the fire. And decentralization, small dams, like you're saying, basically beaver dams everywhere, contouring the land to capture and absorb before it gets to the river. All of those things are ways that we can enhance our resiliency. But at the end of the day, when this dam collapses in an earthquake, there's a lot of things that will be affected. So the idea is that we can try and get it done in a controlled manner, and hopefully the river will rebound in ways that we can't expect. There is my blog, which is much easier for me to post to, venturariver.org. Pretty easy to remember. venturariver.org has a bunch of stuff about the Robles diversion and all of these things that we're talking about. And then for the actual project website is matilijadam.org, and that's the county's website. So If you go to any of those websites, you should be able to find the other, except for Matilija Dam. The question is, what happens to the dam after the reservoir is flushed? And so after the reservoir is flushed, yeah, hell yeah, the dam comes out. All of that concrete would be controlled demo. They use controlled blasting, put nets down below to catch it, and then haul that concrete down there to SP milling, or it'd be recycled and used as road base and build more freeways. I guarantee you that what has happened with the fire, the sediment that's come down, the changes in the river, is a real parallel for what the dam removal would do. And I actually think the dam removal would be less impact than the fire was.
Once it's done, then we're done with that part. We're done with all the mess that comes down from a fire. Well, not necessarily from a fire, but all the silver stuff, we'll deal with it on a one-time basis. And then we have a river.
Yeah.
So now every time
It's-
something happens, we're dealing with it.
Right. You know, resiliency means restoring an ecosystem to where it handles the natural variations in the hydrology, and it's you know, it's so important that we're able to restore. You know, it used to be kind of like a, you know, an ecosystem restoration project, so we can get this. This was because the pot of money that they were looking for from the Corps of Engineers was for ecosystem restoration. And you know, people don't necessarily like to highlight this infrastructure thing, but after Oroville, and you know, these are real problems. The question is, can't we just divert all of that first flush into Casitas? Now, first of all, the canal only handles 500 cubic feet per second. It's a drop in the bucket. But the main thing is that the whole project, the reason that we were slurrying the sediment and putting it in a place nobody wanted it, was so that it wouldn't get in the diversion and wouldn't get into the lake. The last thing that Casitas wants is more sediment, because that reduces the capacity of their lake, and then there's another problem. So we don't want to transfer the problem from one reservoir to the other. The fact that the river can flush that stuff straight through, after the river clears up, after that initial flush, then Casitas can go back to diverting. Part of their problem right now is that they try and divert when there's a lot of stuff coming down. That diversion doesn't work. It doesn't work with high sediment loads. You can't do it because you basically have another small dam in the river, and that dam backs up the sediment. So anytime you slow the water down, sediment drops out. So, you know, the ability of water to carry sediment is based on its velocity. So when the river's really roaring, it can carry boulders, or it can roll boulders. It's not carrying. The suspended load is always suspended. As soon as the water velocity slows, stuff starts dropping out. The gravel and the sand and all that starts dropping out. So as soon as you slow it with a dam, like the diversion dam, it starts backing up. And that's the problem that they have.
And if you spend all the money instead of 10 bridges getting built or building,
Okay, so the second piece of this is that the initial flush is just a piece of it. The real issue is now Matilija Canyon, everything that's come down the canyon for the last 50 years, it's been trapped back there. Once you open that up, now you've restored that natural conveyor belt, so you'll continue to get more sediment down the river. And that's what rivers do. And that's what you have to do to restore a river, is to allow it to transport sediment. And so it's not a one-shot, one-flush deal. There are some impacts with the initial flush, but then it's a long-term change. In areas where the river has been starved of sediment, the river actually cuts down. So there's places there in Miners Oaks where the river is, they said, about 11 feet below where it was historically. And restoring the sediment will bring that river back up. And so once that natural conveyor of sediment comes, the river will come back up. And that's the concern for the flooding in Miners Oaks, is that now the river will come up and then the water surface elevation comes up as much. And like I said, this isn't an if or maybe this is going to happen as soon as the sediment starts coming over the dam. In another, well, probably the next big flood will fill the reservoir and it'll start to come over. Next big flood. So it's all about restoring the river so it can do what rivers do, get out of the way as much as we can, protect what needs to be protected as much as we can, and then in the long term, the community will be more resilient, because right now, that levee in Oakview that was kind of half-assed patched together, it's not going to cut it. And I don't know how many of the residents down there understand that, but you know, so it's a huge project. But like I said, in terms of, when you compare it to widening freeways and stuff, it's actually not that big of a deal. Yeah. No, Casitas is at 40% or something. So I just want to divert you just for a second. There's been a lot of focus in the community on Casitas. Do you know where your water comes from? In the valley here, 60 to 80 to 90, in most years, 100%, or some years, 100% of the water comes from the groundwater. The lake is just backup. So after you pump your wells dry, now you go on Casitas. And so there's been this obsession over, oh, the lake's down, we're running out of water. No, it's like we need water in the ground. And as I said earlier, water evaporates from these reservoirs. The amount of water that evaporates from Lake Casitas is equivalent to the amount of water that the city of Ventura takes from Lake Casitas every year. This is like Lake Powell way out in the desert. Lake Powell evaporates as much water as the city of LA uses from the Colorado River Project annually. And so we need to get away, as climate changes and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, we need to get away from thinking of storing water in ponds. We got to stick it in the ground. And so anything that we can do to recharge the aquifer, to divert water into the aquifer, to capture water and put it in the aquifer, that's going to be to our advantage. And then just like you have your own well or your own pump, the more that individuals can become self-sustainable. I just put in 5,000 gallons of water tanks at my house, and I get 1,000 gallons per inch. So I could easily have caught 20,000 gallons this year if I had that many tanks. And I only use 10,000 gallons a year indoors. So I could have basically offset the amount of water that I use indoors just by capturing the rain. Those are the kind of things that we need to think about as opposed to focusing on how low the lake is, because the lake is a backup supply. In fact, the less that we rely on the lake, the more the lake will come up. If you want the lake to come up, stop drawing on it. Figure out other ways. And you know, everybody's stopped watering their lawns by now, I hope. But you know, that was the first step. I mean, we had everybody watering lawns everywhere, and nobody understood how delicate this situation was. So I got off on a tangent with water supply. In fact, this is the reason that I got interested in water supply, because I thought, oh, Matilija Dam doesn't hold any water. It's obsolete. It has nothing to do with water. And then I quickly got sucked in down the drain. It was all about water. No, Sigma is, Sigma is Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and she's saying, is there a way that Sigma can help leverage the Matilija project? Like I said, we will gain some water by not evaporating it from the reservoir, but really it's the water managers that have to embrace that and understand that, oh, this dam removal is going to actually help our water supply. And I did a back of the envelope calc on this that nobody's really buying. And I tried to get my UCSB intern to take another look at it. I don't know if she's going to get to it this summer or not. But I looked at just the area that was evaporating from the lake and the evapotranspiration from the riparian habitat that's up there. And I figured that it would be more than 1 cubic feet per second of flow in Matilija Creek downstream of the dam if you took the dam out. I actually was closer to 2. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but usually in August, there's no water in the river at all. If you put 2 CFS on top of 0, you got 200% more than you did when you started. So In that respect, every little drop counts. And that would go into the upper Ventura River aquifer, and it would help sustain my well that I run off Ventura River Water District for a little bit longer period. So it's indirectly related, but that's not the reason that we're doing it. It's more about flooding. So I'm not only a water freak, nerd. I'm a water nerd. I'm also an energy nerd. I went on biodiesel after they took my electric car away back in 2002, and I haven't looked back. So now we have a Model 3, long-awaited Model 3. It's awesome. And so I drive on biodiesel. My wife drives on solar. California Solar installed our solar system 2 years ago now, I think. And at the time, I signed up for my Tesla Powerwall through Swell Energy that was kind of expediting all the incentives and all that. So May, I think, I got my Powerwall installed. And it was ironic because the day that they tried to come and install it, they were replacing some of the power lines in my neighborhood, and they wouldn't let them in to install it, and I was out of power that day. But 2 weeks ago, they came back and replaced some more poles, and the power was out all day. And I'm sitting there in my office in the morning, and I didn't even know the power was out. I was on the computer, and I saw these guys come back in the backyard to check my power pole. I'm like, what's going on? And my wife hadn't even bothered to tell me about the notice we got in the mail that the power was going to be out because she knew it didn't apply to us. So we ran all day on the Powerwall and our solar. I got to actually use my solar that day. And my wife said, can I do the laundry? I go, sure, go ahead. Can I run the dishwasher? I go, no problem. We're good. And so thank you, California Solar. I'm stoked to be one step more towards sustainability. I wish I could have gotten 2 of those things for the same price. Yeah, every little step. Like I said, I'm a total geek on this stuff, and my whole house is being upgraded as we speak. Energy, water, everything, and I believe that everybody needs to start thinking like that. And if we can all do our part, it's not fair to blame Lake Casitas or Casitas Water District that we're running out of water. It's like, well, how much water did you catch this winter? How much gray water do you recycle on your garden? What are you doing? Because if you're not capturing it on your property, it's wasted. And in fact, if we all did that, there'd probably be less flooding and we wouldn't have to rebuild these levees. That would be a big ask. But yeah, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Paul. You embody you're an inspiration, and you embody sort of the mission of Green Drinks and the empowerment that we all want. I mean, obviously, you're a treasure here, and we appreciate what you're doing, and sort of visionary. You're walking the talk. So thank you for that. I have a couple questions. One, I just thought maybe I'd connect dots. You talked about macro a lot with the water, but what about micro? We talked about water capture, and you kind of gave a shout out of like, if you're not capturing water, maybe there's another step forward we can take. How do we help folks capture their own water? Is there an organization that you know of here that you endorse that can come and consult, similar to what solar's doing? We come, we look at their energy bill, we look at what their load is, their usage, and then we give them recommendations of how to capture and generate their own energy. And is there a hole in the business market that there's not an organization that's doing that is customizing, whether it's rain barrel capture and rebates that the city, should we be applying pressure on the city to give some sort of a city rebate, or break down, remove the friction to adoption?
Absolutely, yes to all of those. We've been, Renee has been working with the Green Coalition, and she's been doing some audits and some help with the Casitas Water District. There is a new group in town, the Sierra Watershed Progressive, And those guys actually have grant funding now to start to do some of what we're talking about with water. And I think there's an opportunity there. I think if anybody wants to start a business in this valley, I think it's ripe right now. And I would serve as consultant. It's, you know, just putting mulch on my property. It's a real problem to get, you know. And then I was driving down in Orange County, and I saw on the side of the road there was a big giant truck, and it's called Mulch Masters. It's like, man, if there was somebody with a truck and a crew of people that spread mulch, you know, I'd call them up, because I got endless mulching to do. So yeah, mulch it, capture the rainwater in rain barrels, look at your gray water opportunities, and reduce your water footprint. And I think we can do it. 1965, the county had contacted with Bechtel Engineering, as a very large international engineering company, to look at what to do with this dam that was going to fall down. Bechtel quoted them $2 million to remove the dam in its entirety, or like $1.3 million or something to take 30 feet off the top. And what did the county do? Remember, 1965 was before the Clean Water Act. It was before CEQA, NEPA, any environmental review whatsoever. And it was also before the floods of 1969. In 1969, those floods, after it was notched, then put at least half the sediment in the reservoir that is still back there today. So, mistake number one, build a dam in a steep, erodible canyon. Mistake number two, don't take the best deal of your life and leave that thing sitting there so now future generations have to deal with it.